Hi, I'm Fred McNeil, and you're watching QAC TV7. Thank you for being with us. We're having another edition of Commissioner's Corner. I'm delighted to have with me Commissioner Steve Wilson. Steve, thanks a million for coming with me.
Fred, you're too kind.
Now, Steve, we've got a fun topic. I got to let you know. I'm going to let you talk all about the letter you wrote, etc. You have 20,000 plus people responding to a topic you're going to talk about. And you have some great I mean, it came out of the article, the letter was you talking about, hey, wait a minute, are we going to become the Lincoln or the tunnel of yada, yada, yada. So how about immediately address, what are you talking about and what nerve did you hit?
Well, to begin with, this letter came from the county commissioners of Queen Anne's County, not Steve Wilson. Right. That shortly after the election, the commissioners realized that if there is a vital artery in Queen Anne's County and one in which everything depends, it is Route 50, the entire corridor, the Bay Bridge, and down to the border of Queen Anne's County. And that we needed to assess that situation because it is getting demonstrably worse almost every year.
Sure.
And so very promptly in the game, our county executive and I went over to see the director of the bridge, Mr. Garrettson, who is a more knowledgeable and kindly.
He's the expert.
He's the expert on the bridge. We went down there and had a very interesting 2-hour meeting with him, and since then we've met with him, I think, 2 or 3 other times. I also joined Jack Broderick and the group of citizens that belong to the Bay Bridge Committee to get a feeling of what's going on with the bridge and what their estimations are. And as the spring and summer wore on, it became pretty clear that we've got a real problem going here, because even in fairly average circumstances now, we wind up getting traffic backed up on Fridays and Saturday mornings, and if a box of oranges falls off the truck, we've got
a disaster. We've tied everything up.
We've got something going, and the traffic is so intense that once you get a jam going, even if the cause of it clears, the jam doesn't, because
still backed up the route.
It rolls forward and back, but it doesn't. So, that the case, when you begin to consider this situation, these are some things that I think the public should know that I've picked up along the way here. That Bay Bridge traffic and the traffic through Route 50 is increasing at about 1% a year, or has. And their estimations for the next several years are 1% a year. But in fact, I think that may be underestimating the situation, because in fact, 3 years ago, we were building 12 million cars a year in the United States. This year, it's going to be, or selling 12 million. This year, it's going to be 17 million. That the general 1% increase would be great, except when I look at the amount of miles driven, at this point in the year, this year we're up 3.9% more. That's enormously more. And
so the economic upturn is not helping us in this situation.
Absolutely not. And the fact that the bridge toll got cut, that gasoline prices are relatively cheap, and that people are feeling better about travel is causing this thing to load up more and more. And the situation is now such that a lot of the time on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, and even Mondays, we wind up with traffic moving at such density that if anything goes wrong, it starts a backup that almost won't clear until that density decreases. That the case, we have a situation that I really think we need to turn our attention to, and here's what it is. If we decided to make a plan right now to do something about the bridge and Route 50, it would take 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years to get it done. In that period of time, if you grow our traffic, even at 1% or 2 or 3, you're looking at a significantly worse situation.
Sure.
And I'd like to point out that when I was a young kid, I lived up near New York, and at that time there were 4 lanes of New Jersey Turnpike and a Lincoln Tunnel. Now there are 3 Lincoln Tunnels and 12 lanes of Jersey Turnpike feeding it. The crossing on Kent Island is fundamentally the only one in the state of Maryland. It handles the big bulk of traffic rather efficiently from the metroplex of Baltimore, Washington over and down to the ocean. But there isn't another alternative, because if they build a bridge further up or down the bay, there's no infrastructure on the eastern shore that could handle the flow of traffic across that. So very likely, almost assuredly, you can say that in the next 20 years, we're going to have another bridge, we're going to have more lanes and more overpasses, and those things will streamline the traffic and keep it moving. That not getting done, what we're going to have is more gridlocks, more troubles. And one of the problems is that having gridlocks as we now do, it's beginning to move traffic because of the fact that they're getting stopped on Friday afternoons or slow rolling on Fridays and Sundays. They're now moving to Thursdays and Mondays. And when they do that, they begin to impact our commuters.
So are people trying to go somewhere, are you really getting hammered now?
Well, not only does it cause, if there's an accident, gridlock, but the problem with it is that the absolute aorta of our circulatory system in this county is Route 50. Yeah. And right now, we are not having to line up in the morning to get on Route 50 the way they do line up to get through the Lincoln Tunnel and wait 45 minutes to get into New York to your job every day. But by 7 years from now, nobody knows what the circumstances are going to be. And what the argument that I believe we commissioners are making is that the state needs to, starting right now, get on with the business of settling on some kind of plan to streamline the Kent Island corridor and the Bay Bridge.
And that was the purpose of the letter. You just want to jump start it. Hey, guys, let's not wait. Let's do it right now. Right?
Yes.
You said get out of the queue, I think, in the letter.
Yes. Right? And, well, there's a normal, I would say, queue of inconvenience around the state where traffic moves slowly. But in our case, the situation is somewhat different. President Moran and I met with the head of the emergency services, with Dr. Ciatola, and with the head of MEMA, the Maryland State Emergency Management Committee, about 2 months ago, because now, with the gridlocks that we get, if we get a heart attack or stroke, we don't want to feed that into a gridlock and have somebody dying on the bridge.
You literally can't get to a hospital facility. And you pointed out in your letter there's no hospital in Queen Anne's County, right? They have to be taken somewhere. Because
of a combination of state regulations and just historical accident, we're one of 2 counties with no hospital. So our hospitalization depends on rapid access to the hospitals west for the Kent Island people to the hospitals across the Bay Bridge. And if I've got a gridlock going, now we have to quickly assess that and fly those people over the traffic. But to find out that we need to fly them, we got to know that it's happening.
And in the meantime, some poor man or woman's in the back of an ambulance while we make this decision.
We are now provided with the means. We've got cameras on every overpass, all the way from the Bay Bridge down to Easton, that we can look at to see what the circumstances are. But that's it. We still, something has got to be done about this traffic situation, because it's so remote in time by the time it gets solved that trying to create a sure solution is gambling with public safety. And it's gambling with not just the convenience, but the economic necessities of life in this county.
Poor people going to work, if they're going to start lining up in a couple of years,
If you have 70% of our people commuting out of the county, where do you think they're going? Across that bridge.
Going west. They're going west.
Yeah, and that we've absolutely got to get them over there. And I don't want this to start with them sitting for half an hour to get on the bridge.
Let's eliminate. The future is kind of now type thing, right?
Yeah.
Let's do it now. Steve, I was interested in your coalition idea. I think is great.
Sure.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. The Queen Anne County, it's not only the advantage of our citizens to get this matter undertaken, but also Ocean City's business can't grow. I mean, a lot of the serious commerce of the state is inhibited by what's now become a choke point. The Chesapeake Bay is not unlike the Grand Canyon. It's one of the few states that's entirely cut in two,
divided,
and only connected in one 300-mile stretch by one facility. And that's also our only way for us to get in and out of, off of Kent Island in case of a hurricane emergency. So this thing has got to be taken care of, and with the long lag times of getting this done, I'm very intent, and my fellow commissioners join me in this intent. This is not something I'm alone in thinking, and I think all the citizens of our county feel the same way, that that's a route that needs to be kept up to speed and up to standard so that it can deal with the heavy flows that we're now experiencing. Because, as I say, once you begin to jam it up in a rather persistent way, other travelers moving through learn about those jams and move off those time frames and jam up whole new blocks of time. So,
going back to the coalition, you'd like to see what different groups? Please, you talk about that.
Ocean City, plainly their business is inhibited by the fact that, so that they would be a natural partner. Anne Arundel has the same difficulties with traffic. The commuters that are commuting, I mean, we probably on the 4th of July weekend, on just one way, eastbound, we moved 65,000 people on Thursday, just going east. So that's probably 100,000 total Thursday, which means maybe 150,000 people going one way. That's a lot of people standing in line, and it happened by some miracle that on the 4th of July weekend there were no accidents of any substance or consequence and no breakdowns of any consequence. But when you consider that we moved, let's say, 100,000 cars in a day, and the bridge is 4 miles long, you're talking about something where 400,000 vehicle miles without an accident.
We were lucky.
That's all the way to the moon. That doesn't happen very often. You've got to almost expect. And in order to meet the realities of the likelihood of accidents, we need to get a backup by probably a third bridge. But rather than talk about any of the specifics, we probably need an overpass at Route 5213 and a flyover at 404. But rather than talk about any one particular piecemeal solution, I'm just saying that the state needs in the most urgent way to get started on looking at the entire situation, because a lot of this traffic does not originate in our county, or its destination is not our county, and we do this for the convenience of other parts of the state, and I think we feel happy to be used but not misused.
Well, Steve, I hear, like I know you hear all the time, people in Kent Island tell you, Fred, on the weekends, starting Thursday night, I don't get near 50. I stay in my community. I don't try to cross it. I don't go near it just because of what you've talked about, the constant traffic.
Yeah, well, that's fine as long as it moves, but if one breakdown happens and Route 50 stops, then the ramps jam, and now you can't even get across.
Can't get to work.
Can't get home from the store. And that loss of freedom, I think, is not something that
we all want to give up, do we?
No, I think that we need to get on with this plan, take a look at what needs to get done and do it. And the thing I'd like to add to this is, I think there's a particular urgency that has appeared recently, and it comes from this. The state of Delaware has very recently concluded to 4-lane. There was, when you proceed north on Route 301 up toward New York, when you got to Delaware, it turned into a rather unfortunate 2-lane stretch that went on for 20 miles and was slow traffic. But the state of Delaware has just concluded to spend $700 million and 4-lane R301 straight into 95 and Route 1 in Delaware. And I think that that's very likely to unload a rather considerable amount of commercial traffic headed from New York or North Carolina, bringing furniture to New York, and New York bringing clothes to North Carolina. There's a lot of commercial flow that's going to drop into our space, so that this 1% growth calculation is, to me, very suspicious.
Too small.
And yet, that's what is in the plan now, and I want that reconsidered. And my fellow commissioners, I think, share these same
Well, Steve, I was at the Peach Festival this weekend. No, I'm not letting you go yet. I was at the Peach Festival this weekend, and everybody, not everybody, a lot of the people who were running the booths and stuff are from that part of the county. There's apparently on the social media a film that the Delaware Department of Transportation put out that shows this highway like you're talking about, and they're talking about the hidden factor in Queen Anne's County, and you and I were talking about this before we were on the air, is not only do we have the concern on Kent Island, but we got this hidden growth, and not so hidden, I think you said, coming down from Middletown, Delaware, which is a boom town. And if we put this highway in, hold on, Nellie, we're in trouble. We got both ends coming, right?
Yeah, I mean, when you're running a system in 90% of capacity, all you have to do is add a very small incremental amount before you overload it and jam it.
Get in trouble.
So that it's very tough to know when cars are moving at 60 and you add 5% more cars. All of a sudden, it turns into 40 and then 15.
Changes the whole picture, doesn't it?
And that rather incremental boost. And all you got to do, it's you know, there's a study coming out, and that the state has not released that study as to how soon they need to do this. But as I said about it, that as the great Bob Dylan said 50 years ago.
And you know him personally. I'm always impressed by that.
You don't need a weatherman to know which way the wind blows.
That's right.
You don't need a traffic study. If you get out on Route 50 and look at the flow of cars, just one 20 feet behind the next, everybody going 70, to realize that this thing is running right about capacity. And once you add more to 80 or 90% capacity, soon the whole thing slows down.
It's going to get ugly.
And even now, at 213 and 404, we get backups that run all the way down to Skipton because we're not getting the traffic moving through. So we need overpasses there. We probably need more but I don't want to specify what needs to be done.
We have to address the big topic, which you hit on. Well,
go ahead.
I was going to say, they can, and just the people watching the show, if they haven't read the letter you sent, it's on the county website, right?
Yes.
So it's easy to get to, all right? There's all types of summaries. So if you go to our Queen Anne's County website, then get a copy of the letter. Let me ask you this. In terms of a time frame, if you had your way, the commissioners have sent the letter, what's the next step? What would you like the next step to be as commissioner?
Well, what I'd like the next step to be is for those forces in the state, the governor, the secretary of transportation or delegation, the state legislature, to begin to react to this thing, because this is a necessity for us, but it's an utmost importance for the economic health of the whole state.
Sure.
And what I would like is for them to begin to respond. And how you respond is by getting planning going and saying that, you know, in 1 year we're going to fix this lane, in 2 years we're going to put an overpass here, in 3 lanes we're going to put another Bay Bridge, or whatever those, rather than specify, we'll just say that whatever those mechanisms that need to be done,
let's get them going.
That planning needs to, I want it on the table now, what the plan is to deal with what, we've got a very inevitable future coming, and I want an inevitable response to it.
Okay, so
I think that's what the commissioners we speak about. I don't know of what we consider in our various deliberations that is going to be more meaningful for the health of the county 10 years out from now. And I note that in the western part of the state, that commissioners up there have had Transportation Secretary Rome up there to add to or streamline interstate facilities up in their part. So if they're doing it, we've got an even more urgent situation down here, because if we have a hurricane or any kind of emergency, the one way on and off Kent Island involves Route 50 and the Bay Bridge, and it just needs to we need to get going on it.
Okay. Now, Steve, we'll wrap up with it. If people, like, I asked you this off the air, if right now I've read the letter, people at home will read the letter, I'm saying, wow, we've got to do it. Right now, you want the citizens just keep on top of the issue. There's no reason can citizens help in any way, or just? I
think at this point it really is. This isn't something that I think individuals can at this point help with. The day may come when some sort of public expression would be helpful. But right now what we need to do is have our set of commissioners join with those state officials to see that the planning of this thing, they don't have to vote the money up this day, but they need to get this plan, they need to get a schedule down so that we begin to deal with this thing in a comprehensible way. Because right now what's going on, as far as I know, is I haven't heard of any plan to do something. I hear we will,
Yeah.
but when?
I've lived here almost 40 years. I keep hearing it's another bridge, the magic formula, which I still haven't seen. You've here many more years than I have.
Yeah. No, there may be something out there, but I think it's something that all of us should know about and can depend on.
Okay.
Because it depends on both the safety and economic well-being of our county depend on the regulation and good management of that particular stretch of road. And
Okay, great. Steve, anything else you want to add?
that's it.
Okay, well, look, thank you, as always, for coming by and being a big supporter of QAC TV7. We'll remind everybody home, go to the county government website. You can see a copy, the full copy of the letter the commissioners have sent, and you can also, there's a synopsis there too. And please stay on top of this issue, because as Commissioner Wilson has said, we're talking economic issues, we're talking quality of life issues, and we're also talking the scary topic of medical and emergency issues, right?
Oh,
So please watch this. And if you have questions, of course, you can email our county commissioners. And Steve, again, we appreciate you being here, all right? I'm Fred McNeil. You've been watching Commissioner's Corner. My time's up. We're going to see you next time.